Understanding bacterial infection and zoonosis, leptospirosis in the urban environment of New York City. Pause text and illustrations for detailed study. Refer to the previously posted constituent factors observed in viral diseases, parts 1 through 5. Constituent factors observed in messenger RNA vaccination, types of connective tissue, and epithelium, classification, structure, and function, for an overview of microbial infection and immunity. A bacterium is any unicellular prokaryotic microorganism that multiplies by means of fission, contained within a cellular membrane, lacking organelles or an organized nucleus. Bacteria are aerobic, anaerobic, free-living, motile, non-motile, parasitic, or sometimes pathogenic to animals or plants. Coccus refers to a spherical bacterium. A bacillus is a rod-shaped bacterium. Bacterial cell arrangements and morphologies chart. Many bacteria reproduce by binary fission. Illustration. Arrangements of bacterial flagella. A. Monotrichous. B. Lophotrichous. C. Amphitrichous. D. Peritrichous. A flagellum is a long whip-like mobile projection from the free cell surface functioning in locomotion. Bacterial flagella are simple, thin flagellin strands woven into a helical filament attached to the cell wall. Flagellar rotary motility is attributable to a proton motor force at the flagellum's attachment point on the inner cell membrane. Prokaryotic flagellum rotary movement illustration. Gram staining consists of the introduction of a colored identifying stain and alcohol into a bacterial cell wall for the classification of microscopic bacteria. A gram-positive bacterium retains the given colored stain or resists alcohol discoloration of the bacterial cell wall composed of a thick peptidoglycan layer with attached teichoic acids. A gram-negative bacterium loses the stain or is discolored by alcohol, visible in the bacterial cell wall thin peptidoglycan layer, which is covered by an outer lipoprotein and lipopolysaccharide layer. Atypical bacteria are neither gram-positive nor gram-negative and do not stain, remaining relatively colorless upon testing. Gram-positive and gram-negative bacterial cell wall structure illustration. Overview of bacterial infections illustration. Zoonosis refers to any naturally transmissible disease or infection of vertebrate animals to human beings. Zoonotic pathogens may be bacterial, parasitic, or viral. Infection occurs via direct contact with contaminated ingested food and liquid, as well as the environment. Rabies, salmonellosis, Ebola virus, COVID-19, and leptospirosis are examples of zoonotic infections. Human immunodeficiency virus was initially a zoonosis that subsequently mutated into exclusively human strains. Reverse zoonotic diseases may be transmitted from humans to animals. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and Mycobacterium tuberculosis are examples of bacterial diseases cited in medical literature as being transmissible between humans and animals in either direction. Examples of zoonotic diseases and their affected populations. Spirochaetaceae are a bacterial family of the order Spirocheetales, presenting as thin, motile, undulating spiral organisms. Spirochetes are a phylum of gram-negative lexical, helical bacteria, motile by means of protoplasmic flagella, being chemo-organotrophic, anaerobic or aerobic, facultatively anaerobic, microaerophilic, free-living, associated with animal hosts, and sometimes pathogenic of the class Spirochetes. Leptospira comprise a genus of the Leptospiraceae bacterial family. They consist of individual finely coiled motile aerobic cells possessing ends resembling hooks visible under dark field microscopy. The type species comprising all pathogenic strains is Leptospirosis interrogans. Rodents and many wild and domestic animals are reservoir animals carrying the bacteria in their renal tubules, voiding the pathogen via the urine into the environment. Human infection is attributable to skin or mucosal contact with the urine, blood, or tissue of infected animals, as well as contact with contaminated soil, vegetation, food, or water affected by same. Bites from infected animals are also a source of infection. A Serovar consists of a taxonomic subdivision of bacteria based on the combinations and types of constituent antigens in a cell. All Leptospirosis interrogans serovars are believed to be capable of causing the syndromes manifest by mild to fatal disease carriers. As we have studied in the context of some viral diseases in previous monographs, various forms of leptospirosis have been named based on their perceived geographical origin. Naming can also be based on clinical manifestations, the host animal, patient occupation, as well as the bacterial serovar believed to be causative of disease. Weil's disease is a severe form of leptospirosis. Leptospirosis most commonly occurs in temperate or tropical climates. Leptospirosis fact sheet. Leptospirosis on dark field microscopy image. Scanning electron micrograph image of Leptospira bacteria atop a polycarbonate filter. Pathogenesis of leptospirosis. Please read the numbered items in proper order. Symptoms and signs of leptospirosis. Although most human cases are asymptomatic or mild, a small percentage involve leptospiremia-related multi-organ failure and an increased rate of morbidity and mortality. Triggering of the inflammatory cytokine immune response described in previous monographs occurs for the elimination of the pathogen. Sometimes the cytokine storm occurs due to excessive cytokine production, resulting in immunoparalysis, leading to sepsis and related organ damage, as failures resulting in patient mortality. An increased incidence of leptospirosis infection is currently being observed primarily in New York City. 14 people were diagnosed as having leptospirosis in the boroughs of the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn, with the exception of Staten Island, as of September 2021, at rates higher than ever previously reported in a given year. 13 patients hospitalized with acute renal and hepatic failure, 2 also with severe pulmonary involvement, were successfully treated and discharged. 1 fatality occurred. 13 infections were locally acquired and 1 resulted from travel-related exposure. 3 cases involved homeless individuals. Rats bite people and animals, as well as contaminate the environment with infectious diseases, and are also a source of substantial damage to property. The increased presence of leptospirosis infected rats and human contact with surfaces and consumables infected primarily by the urine are attributable to inadequate environmental sanitation and rat control. A subway track maintenance worker recently told this author that rats do not usually pose a significant problem to the repair crews in the train tunnels. However, They pose a hazard to track laborers, subway employees, commuters, and the homeless inhabiting the train stations, where the rats reside, attack, contaminate, and proliferate due to the sustenance they receive from the consumables discarded by humans. Rats running on the streets, into and between buildings, on the subway platforms, and even in subway cars are a common sight. Rat infestation of the engine compartments of vehicles parked on New York City streets has become a very expensive and devastating problem for motorists, since rodents are partial to gnawing on automotive electrical wires, causing extensive damage, rendering vehicles inoperable and mechanically totaled. Motorists have resorted to spreading peppermint oil on the wheels and in the engine compartment to naturally repel the rats from damaging their vehicles. Rodent-infested public facilities, such as bus terminals and subway stations, platforms and trains, parks, the waterfront, as well as commercial and residential spaces, and the urban habitat at large in New York City, are the venues for human infection from leptospirosis. New presentations coming soon.